Quick disclaimer before you watch this video, CF Moto did not pay us to say anything of what you're about to watch. Also, CF Moto makes a bunch of great engines such as the KTM 790, so we don't want to hear any slander about CF in the comments section. With all that being said, enjoy this video on the 700 CLX.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Yammy Noob. We are your lovely hosts Whitney and Josh, and today CF Moto flew us out to try out their lovely lineup of 7 different motorcycles that they're going to be launching in the US. And today we're going to focus on the CLX 700 and the CLX 700 Sport.
So before getting the email, we had never heard of CF Moto, but we started doing some digging, and they're making bikes all around the world, and they're making really good bikes. We decided as a team that it was really worth covering these because they are packed with features. We're gonna get into everything of all the specs. The specs on paper are incredible. The tech features, the amount of bike that you're getting for the money for these, for everything in their lineup is pretty ridiculous. So we just kind of wanted to figure out, is this all too good to be true? Like, is it all just on paper, or do these things actually come together and end up being nice motorcycles?
And of course, should the big four be scared?
Yeah, because I think they kind of should. There's a whole lot going on with these bikes. So yeah, we're out here all day. We've got the whole lineup. They've got bikes all the way from 125s, like the Papio is what they call it, a little mini bike. They've got 300, fully fared, naked bike.
They've got ADV bikes.
ADV bikes. They've got a 650 Sport Touring and a 650 naked bike. And then these two, which are the flagship models. The 700 here comes in 2 trims. As you can see, I've got handlebars here. This is the standard trim. The handlebars are probably the standout feature, but you'll also notice there's a quite different braking setup. I've got 1 disc here and 2 disc here. This, the Sport model, has carbon fiber farkles, a different rear end that's extremely aggressive. It's got Brembo Stylema, 320 millimeter dual disc rotors up front with a Brembo master cylinder. Yeah.
All right, Josh, why don't we break down the things we like and the things we don't like?
Guys, our time with the Triumph Speed Triple is coming to an end. It is so sad, but we do have to give this motorcycle away. It's been one of my very favorite giveaway motorcycles we've ever done. Hit the link down below to shop.yammynoob.co, use the code CRUMPET, and get yourself max entries to win this motorcycle right here on any merch purchase on the store. This bike's really, really sweet. I'm really gonna miss it dearly, but we do have to give it away. You have until this Friday. Don't miss out.
All right, so we're gonna start with the good and the bad, and I think this is really interesting because we both got off of our first laps, and I was like way into this entire thing. I love how it looks. It comes with a bunch of really awesome features. There is a CF Moto Ride app that allows GPS tracking, geofencing. I've never heard of any of this with a motorcycle in America, at least. I love the clutch feel on this thing. It's making 75 horsepower, 50 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, you can't beat those numbers for that price point. But Josh, tell me, what was it like when you got off the bike?
So first instinct, I came out here, I'm at a track. I got on the bikes in the morning, brand new bikes, 0 miles on the bikes when we got out here. And I was having all kinds of trouble going as fast as I wanted to go. That's what happened. And then I kind of had to get out of my own head when I heard your feedback and realized that, and that kind of leads me into the negatives, is that it's not a race bike.
It's not a race bike.
It's not a race, none of them are race bikes. even the fully fared, the 300 SS they call it, which looks like a race bike, they're not race bikes.
Josh, what was the first thing they said before we got out here?
No racing.
No racing. It's not a racetrack.
Well, I know why they don't want us racing. They don't have race bikes. But talking to you really changed my perspective. It made me realize that I'm asking something to do something that it wasn't designed to do. And it has so many great things going on that I was letting all of that be overshadowed by the traction. I was having issues with traction because they're brand new tires. This course that we're on is really made for road training with cars. So they've got like a lot of tar snakes and stuff. And I was putting roadblocks in front of myself to be able to actually see this motorcycle as it is and enjoy it for what it's meant to be.
All right, what else didn't you like?
Okay, so the way the power comes on is a little weird to me. even after doing a bunch of laps, it feels so weird. So we can show it on the dash. When you switch into sport mode, it highlights a certain section of the rev range, and it is the most direct feedback that you've ever felt when you switch a riding mode, because as soon as your RPMs hit that rev range, the bike lurches forward and all of a sudden feels like a completely different motorcycle. Between 6,000 and 9,000 RPMs is usually where that is. It feels more than 75 horsepower. It's really aggressive. But when you're accelerating from a slow speed at low RPMs and you're just wide open, it's shocking because the power is so not linear. So it's a weird map.
Sure, it's got a wonky map, all right.
Yeah. It's got kind of a wonky map, and then it doesn't exactly play nicely with the throttle when you're in those high rev ranges. It's kind of weird and lurchy and unpredictable.
Well, why don't we hop on these motorcycles and dig into why we like them so much?
Okay, first thing, to talk about the differences between these two bikes, we need to cover the ergonomics. For reference, I am 5'8" and about 145 pounds, so I'm on the smaller end for riders, and these bikes both fit me phenomenally. I will say that one of the limiting factors if you're a taller rider is that pretty much everything in this lineup is pretty small on the scale for motorcycles. But let's take this thing around so you can actually see how it looks on me. The first thing to talk about on this bike, this is the standard model, so it has the handlebars. It makes it an extremely relaxed riding position, just kind of like you're used to on all of your naked bikes with handlebars. Just like an MT03, just like MT07, it's a very comfortable place to sit. The big difference with the standard version over the Sport is the seat, and if you look at them side by side, the subframe and seat section of them are extremely different. This one has a really cupped seat. It really holds you from going back, but at the same time, it doesn't give you the same flexibility and purchase on that seat if you want to start hanging off either side. It'll the sides kind of try and keep you right in the middle. My reach to the bar though is perfect. It feels completely natural. I have no complaints about the ergonomics on this bike. Let's jump onto the Sport real quick and look at some of the differences. Okay, cool. Jumping on the Sport version, and the big difference here is the clip-ons, obviously. It comes across in the visuals of these bikes, but it's a huge difference in the riding position. My back feels like it's a little bit more leaned over than before. And the next big difference that I noticed is the seat shape. This seat on this the Sport version is a lot flatter, a lot more like you'll find on a sport bike, and I think it gives you that flexibility to kind of scoot your butt all over either side a little bit more easily. That way you can hang off this bike if you want to. So that pretty much wraps it up for the ergonomic differences. They're a standout feature between these two models. They do ride very differently. I will say though, even though this is the Sport model, it's extremely comfortable and pretty neutral in its stance. If I was on a super sport bike, I'd expect my feet to be at least 2 or 3 inches higher and my bars to be a whole lot lower. These clip-ons are above the triple tree and have risers on them, so it's a pretty neutral stance. It just gets your back leaned over a little bit more. I think a bigger rider would have even more trouble on this bike than they would on the standard, but for a guy my size, this is a really comfortable place to sit. All right, here we go. Let's do a little on the bike section. So we've talked over the specs and we've talked over what it is we're doing here today, but let's get down to it. What do we think about these bikes? How do they feel? And give you a little bit of a first impression on these. Not raw impression, but give your thoughts.
Actually,
Whitney?
no, this is the first, I only rode that one. This is my first time on the Heritage model.
Oh yeah, but you loved this one.
I love that one.
So everything that you loved about this one will probably translate to that one.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but lead us away and tell us what you like about these bikes.
All right. You know what I love is a wet track.
Heck yeah.
A wet track with lots of tar snakes on it.
Exactly, and tires with low miles, nice cold tires.
I am noticing already a huge difference in ergonomics. Like I'm feeling a little bit more crouched. I'm feeling my elbows there's not as much like wiggle room. They're pretty tight. We're gonna go through this like hilarious chicane full of knocked over cones. There we go, I got it. I think I like the ergonomics on the non-sport model better, but I do love these bar end mirrors, man. I think I would do the sacrifice.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you are not the first person that I've heard say that they like this Heritage model more, even though that's the up-spec version.
Dude, I love this engine. It's so smooth. I love that clutch feel. I love the easily switchable rider modes. The handling is really nice. Like, it's got this nice little banked curve. Oh, handles great. What do you think, Josh? You loving it, hating it?
The biggest thing for me is the slipper clutch on these bikes. So like the clutch pull is whatever. I've got my GS that has like a 20-pound clutch pull, so those things don't bother me as much. But downshifting, and you don't even have to rev match at all. You can be extremely lazy with how you downshift. And especially as long as you let your clutch hand out a little gently, it really handles it well on all the models, every single one. If you downshift hard, the slipper clutch is gonna take care of you, which is kind of cool.
All right, Josh, let's switch just so I can, you know, get a quick reminder as to the ergo package on the non-sport version.
Right. And so that I can take a quick look, and I've ridden this one a good bit, and the biggest difference here obviously is the Brembos on this brake. It's a huge up spec. Everything is identical. Power is identical. Gearing is identical. It's only ergonomics and brakes as the difference on these two bikes.
Ooh, dude, let's do the tiny track.
Tiny track it is. Yeah, it's cool. They have us out here, and they have a little car, which is a little track, which is like a kart track almost.
I love the ergos on this one way more.
Yeah, this one's interesting because the reason on super sports that we ride in those super committed positions is to have better feel and control over the motorcycle at super fast speeds. And this bike, this is a cafe bike. This bike is meant to look a certain way more than it is to be a race machine. So it almost detracts, in my opinion, from the full package. From the one that you're riding on. It's better just as a relaxed bike because it doesn't quite do the competition sport bike thing, so it doesn't make any sense for me to be riding in this position. Right,
it's got a little bit more of that cruiser cafe vibe, you know, that bobber sense. So I think, you know, if that's what you're going for, you're kind of just going, you know, bopping around town. That's a perfect setup for it.
It's a really important point to make, though, because I think that everyone that looks at these 700s is going to say, well, if I can afford it and if it's available, I want the sport because of the upgrades, because of the brakes, because of, you know, the styling upgrades. But there's actually just considerations that just make them different, make them better for different jobs. And I don't think you need to get the sport model if it's an option for you just because it has nicer brakes. I think a lot of people, and even people here, are a lot happier on the Heritage version. Let's go to the back straight and show them the power. Because these bikes, they'll move.
Oh, they move.
They really do. It's really cool because when you go to eco mode, it highlights a lower rev range. And that's kind of, I don't know, it stay in lower rev range is what it tells you. But when you move it to sport, it takes that same highlight to the very upper echelon of your rev range. And when you're rolling on, it just smacks you in the face as soon as your RPMs hit that 7 grand number. All right, let's get straightened out. It is a little slippery out here. It is definitely wet, so.
Feeling, man. I love this engine.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. You know how much I love 650s, and this one does it so well. It gives you 4,000 or 5,000 good revs, good thousands of RPMs that are so usable and so powerful. And then it's just crazy buttery smooth power below that. It's really got like a dual nature vibe to it.
All right, Josh, what do you think? Should the big four be scared?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the big four should be scared. My beloved Suzuki that hasn't updated any of my favorite bikes in a decade should be worried, honestly. I mean, this is their first at bat, bringing these bikes to North America. and they're really good, and they're so packed with features, and they're so affordable that this is gonna steal a lot of the market. There's gonna be a lot of new riders who can't say no to bikes like this because, I mean, the technology in this bike, the features in both of the bikes, it is extremely attractive. And they're not race machines, totally fine. But man, they are incredible everyday bikes. Little commuters, city bikes, street bikes. They're beautiful. I mean, they have such aggressive and cool styling.
Way cool styling. I mean, it checks all the boxes in my book. I mean, for real, I really didn't know what to expect. You know, you kind of hear a Chinese manufacturer breaking into the American market and you're like, okay, is this just going to be a bunch of cheap stuff? I mean, it'll be reliable, but like, I don't know what that means exactly. But also everything's made in China, so.
Exactly, yeah. I think we probably use 100 or 200 things every single day that are made in China, but when we think about our motorcycles, we have a
you're like, wait a second.
Exactly, but man, I'm excited about these bikes. I would love to have one, honestly. I think that they'd be killer bikes to ride around on every single day. They're really fun, really reliable, very available. Aftermarket support's super available on them. There's a whole lot going on for these guys. So even though this just feels like a little bit of a simp fest for these guys, we're not fooling around. These bikes are the real deal.
This feels great.
Cool. So yeah, should people buy them? Is that what you're saying?
People should buy them. Yep. End of story.
Cool. Yeah, I completely agree. You were throwing rocks at me because the pavement is drying off.
It's okay.
Yeah, you don't usually feel that in leathers, but they didn't require leathers out here, and so everyone who showed up was very confused. Cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this bike, the other bike, any of the bikes that you hear about CF Moto, we probably rode it while we were out here. Shoot us a question in the comments below, or let us know your thoughts. We are really excited about these bikes, so thank you to CF Moto for having us out. We'll catch you on the next one.
Josh, should we just sit out here in the rain and finish, just covered in sweet water? It's a perfect way to end the video.
I could sit here all day.
We don't know what rain is like in Texas.
Hey, we know that there's no info on these bikes out there. This is probably the first video you're seeing on them. If you've got questions about this stuff, we've spent multiple days with them. Drop your questions down below in the comments and let us know what you want and what you're curious about these bikes. There's a whole lot to cover, and we don't want to bore you with a 90-minute video.
All right,
so
let's go.
Whitney's chasing me out of the rain. All right, thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Well, look at you. You've made it to the end of another Yami Noob video. You should consider yourself pretty lucky because I have curated this one right over here for you to continue watching. It's probably just as good as the one you just saw. Unless you hated the one you just saw. I don't know, maybe leave me a comment down below about how much you hated it as well too. Or just keep watching this one. Make sure you keep watching Yami Noob. Don't forget to keep watching Yami Noob. That's the most important thing. Keep watching Yami Noob.